7 years ago, my Hispanic family cut me off for marrying a white lawyer. Now, out of nowhere, they're calling me because my criminal cousin needs legal help and might be headed to prison. Talk about audacity. These same people couldn't even send a single message when my daughter was born 3 years ago. But now that they need a lawyer, suddenly I'm on their radar? Yeah, that's family for you. Growing up, family and community were everything. We may not have been wealthy, but we were tight-knit. Every Sunday, all 25 plus of us would pile into my abuela's small 2-bedroom house, and the place would be packed with chatter, food, and laughter. My parents instilled a deep sense of family unity, our culture, our traditions, into me. It was drilled into us that we had to stick together, no matter what. My mom especially pushed this idea, flipping out if we spoke anything but Spanish at home. My dad, on the other hand, would tell stories about how our grandparents came here with nothing and worked their way up. But what they really meant by family unity was that you followed their rules to stay in the fold. You respect your elders, which basically means doing whatever they say. Prioritize family, even when they're toxic, and never stray from tradition. And that last one, that's what got me cut out. Let me provide some context. I met Daniel, my husband, a decade ago in law school. We were in different fields, me, corporate law, him, criminal defense, but we kept running into each other during study breaks. Honestly, I found him kind of annoying at first. He was the guy who had to argue about everything in class. But after spending countless late nights studying together, we became close friends. He understood my sense of humor, something no one in my family ever did, and for the first time, I felt like I could be myself. When I told my family about him, it was a complete meltdown. My mom panicked, asking how I'd adapt to his family, questioning how my kids would know their culture, and even wondering about our reputation in the community. Mind you, we weren't even engaged yet, and they were already fixating on the idea of grandkids. This wasn't the first time they'd freaked out over my choices. They did the same thing when I chose law school over teaching, which, in their eyes, was a much more suitable profession for a girl in our community. A bit more context on my family's background: most of them work in farming or fishing. Education wasn't exactly a priority for them. My uncle Jorge always says, "We've worked the land for generations. Why change now?" In my generation, only 3 of us went to college: me, my cousin Maria, who became a nurse but quit after getting married, and my cousin Alex, who dropped out after 2 years because college, in his words, is for white people. None of the women in my family have professional careers. Most are stay-at-home moms or work minimum-wage jobs. And guess what? They're all happily married to Hispanic guys, which, according to my family, is the only thing that matters. Daniel's success and law degree meant nothing to them because he wasn't one of us. I tried to explain how perfect Daniel was for me. We both understood the demands of being lawyers, and his family had been nothing but welcoming. His mom even learned to make tamales to show her support. But my mom wasn't having it. She launched into a campaign to set me up with every available Hispanic guy in a 50-mile radius. And if I ignored her texts, she'd send passive-aggressive messages, calling me whitewashed by your white boyfriend. My cousin Teresa tried the same thing when she married a guy from our church, pushing me to meet his good Catholic friend. I couldn't believe it. What year was this? It got so bad that I had to mute their messages and stop attending family holidays. Meanwhile, Daniel's family was incredibly supportive. They always made sure I felt welcome during holidays, even learning to cook some of our traditional dishes. When Daniel proposed, I didn't even bother telling my family right away. My sister-in-law had warned me about their reaction when she started dating a Puerto Rican guy, and he was at least Latino. It didn't matter that Daniel spoke fluent Spanish, loved our food, or cared about our traditions. To them, he'd always be an outsider, and I was betraying my roots. At first, Daniel suggested we try talking to them, maybe work things out. He believed they'd come around eventually, but I knew better. My family could be cruel when they wanted to be, and I wasn't about to let them insult Daniel to his face. So, the wedding planning became an emotional roller coaster. Rumors were already circulating about me thinking I was too good for my own people because I had moved to a better neighborhood after finishing law school. One night, Daniel and I had a long talk about everything. He made a good point. I wasn't doing anything wrong, so why was I acting like I needed to hide? It was time to be upfront about everything, so I called my mom to tell her about the wedding. I wasn't ready for the storm that followed. She completely lost it, screaming that I was killing her, saying she'd failed as a mother, all the typical dramatic nonsense. She told me to quit my job and move back home, as if I were some rebellious teenager who needed to be grounded. I told her straight out that I wasn't 6 years old anymore, that I wouldn't just follow her orders, but she wouldn't let up. She insisted I cancel the wedding. I sent invites to my parents, my brother, and a few cousins I thought I was close with. These were the people I grew up with, the ones who were supposed to be there for me. My brother and I used to be inseparable. We had each other's backs growing up, covering for each other when we snuck out, sharing homework, everything. My cousin and I were more like sisters, always talking about how we'd be each other's bridesmaids. But when they got the invites, my family went ballistic. They said I was being too white, sending out invitations without involving them in every single decision. My mom called and told me that if I went through with the wedding, I'd be dead to her. My abuela cried about the family's shame, and my brother, who I thought would support me, ghosted me completely. He blocked me on everything. None of them cared about what I wanted. They were only worried that I was betraying our culture. We had a small but beautiful wedding in a park with Daniel's family and our close friends. I won't lie, it hurt like hell when not a single person from my family showed up. The next 7 years, complete radio silence, no birthday texts, no calls, nothing. When we bought our house, not a word, and when we had our daughter 3 years ago, that hit me hardest. I thought my mom would at least want to meet her granddaughter. My daughter's first word was ABOA, because I talked about my mom, showed her pictures, but nothing. It took a long time, but I eventually learned to cope. I went to therapy, worked through all the rejection, and found peace in my own family, people who love me unconditionally. Then, last week, my mom called out of the blue. At first, I thought it was a scam. Her number hadn't popped up in years. I answered, half curious, but she skipped all pleasantries. She didn't ask how I was, or how my daughter was, nothing. She just dove straight into, "We need your help." It's about Ryan. Classic mom, straight to the point when she wants something. Now, let me tell you about Ryan, my cousin from my mom's side. He's been the golden child of the family, spoiled beyond belief, the first grandson, the first son of our generation, so, of course, he could do no wrong. When we were kids, he broke my arm at a family party, and my parents told me to apologize for crying and ruining the celebration. He got kicked out of 3 different high schools for fighting, but the family claimed it was the teacher's fault. He got his girlfriend pregnant at 17, and suddenly it was a blessing. No one held him accountable for his mistakes. His parents covered for him, paid his bills, got him jobs through family connections, jobs he'd mess up every time, and he just got worse as he got older, knowing they'd always bail him out. Well, this time, he really messed up. He got arrested for stealing from his workplace, been forging checks and stealing money for months. Now, he's facing serious jail time, and suddenly, the family is in crisis mode. They need a lawyer. And hey, guess who's a lawyer? Apparently, after 7 years of pretending I didn't exist, they remembered their daughter actually has a legal career. Convenient, right? I bet my mom spent hours debating whether to reach out to me, weighing if it was worth swallowing her pride to ask the traitor for help. When she told me about Ryan's situation, I was shocked. 7 years of treating me like I was dead to them, and now they need me because it's convenient for them. I asked her outright, why me? Can't his parents afford a lawyer? What about the aunts and uncles who've been kissing his ass all these years? Mom got defensive, saying they tried, but the case was too complicated. Then she hit me with the classic line, "Your family. I know we've had our differences, but family helps each other. Ryan needs you." The same woman who cut me off, who told me I wasn't her daughter anymore, was now throwing the family card in my face. When I told Daniel about the call, he was furious. He remembers how much their rejection hurt me. He said, "They threw you away, and now they think they can just waltz back into your life because it's convenient. Hell no. Don't forget how much you needed your mom when you were pregnant. Forget them." He's 100% right, but I can't stop thinking about the past. The way my abuela used to make me soup when I was sick, singing Spanish lullabies as I fell asleep. But then I remember how easily they cut me off, how their love came with conditions that I refused to meet anymore. They chose their pride over their own blood. I know I'm not going to help them, but I can't stop thinking about my family. It's strange, like that phone call reopened all these old wounds I thought had healed. Has anyone else dealt with something like this? Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support. Just a quick update, things have gotten even more intense. The same day I posted here, my mom called again. I declined the call and texted her that I couldn't help, that she needed to stop bothering me. Big mistake, because that set off a whole new storm. She sent this long text about how this was the first time they'd ever asked for help and that I was refusing to step up. She hit me with the family responsibility guilt trip, so I texted back, "My responsibility is to my husband and daughter, not to you, who cut me off because I chose my happiness over your pride." She completely lost it, sending more crazy long messages about how I've changed, how I'm not the daughter she raised anymore. "You've become one of them, mean and cruel. Your success has gotten into your head. You've forgotten your roots." The irony, she hasn't even tried to meet her granddaughter in 3 years. The messages kept coming, my aunt sobbing, my uncle ranting about how the system is rigged against our people, and my cousin, who I haven't heard from in over a decade, saying I should represent Ryan because he doesn't deserve prison. Yeah, because risking my law license for him is a great idea. My dad's been quiet through all of this, because Ryan's from my mom's side, but I know if this were someone from his side, it'd be a different story. I wasn't doing anything wrong, so why did I feel the need to hide? I decided to be upfront about it, so I called my mom to let her know about our wedding plans. Jesus, I wasn't prepared for the hurricane that followed. She completely lost it, screaming about how I was killing her, how she'd failed as a mother, all that drama. She demanded I quit my job and move back home, like I was some teenager in need of a grounding. I told her straight up, I'm not 6 anymore, but she wouldn't back down about canceling the wedding. I sent wedding invitations to my parents, my brother, and a few cousins I thought I was close to. These were the people I grew up with. My brother and I used to be inseparable. We'd cover for each other when we snuck out as teens, help each other with homework, all that sibling stuff. My cousin and I were so close in high school, always talking about being each other's bridesmaids. But when those invites went out, my family lost their minds, accusing me of acting too white for just sending them invites instead of involving them in every little decision. My mom called, saying if I went through with the wedding, I'd be dead to her. My aboa cried about family shame, and my brother, who I thought would have my back, completely ghosted me. He blocked me on everything. None of them cared about what I wanted. All they cared about was me betraying our culture. So, we went ahead with a small but beautiful wedding in a park with Daniel's family and our close friends. It stung like hell when not one person from my family showed up. The next 7 years, complete silence, no birthday texts. No calls, nothing, not even a word when we bought our house. When our daughter was born 3 years ago, that was the real gut punch. I always imagined my mom at least wanting to meet her granddaughter. My daughter's first word was ABA, because I'd talk about my mom and show her pictures. But still, nothing. It took me years, but I learned to cope. I went to therapy to work through the pain of that rejection. I built my own family, the one that actually loved me without conditions. But last week, out of nowhere, my mom called. I thought it was a scam at first. I hadn't seen her number in years. I answered because I was curious, but she didn't even greet me. No, how are you? Or, how's your daughter? She went straight into, we need your help. It's about Ryan. Ryan is my cousin on my mom's side, the golden child of the family. This guy's been spoiled rotten from day one. First grandson, son of our generation. So of course, he could do no wrong. He broke my arm once during a family party, and my parents made me apologize for crying and ruining the event. He got kicked out of 3 high schools for fighting, but the family said it was just because the teachers hated him. He got his girlfriend pregnant at 17, and suddenly, he was the family's miracle baby. Even though he had so many issues growing up, everyone just swept it all under the rug. His parents bailed him out of everything, paid his bills, got him jobs through connections, only for him to mess them up. And as he got older, the family's cover-ups just got worse. Well, he really screwed up this time. He got arrested for stealing from his workplace. Apparently, he'd been forging checks and embezzling money for months. Now he's facing serious jail time. And suddenly, the family is in crisis mode. They need a lawyer to get him out of this mess. And after 7 years of pretending I don't exist, they remembered that, hey, I'm actually a lawyer. How convenient. I bet my mom spent hours debating whether it was worth it to call me for help. When she told me about Ryan's situation, I was honestly shocked. 7 years of treating me like I was dead to them, and now they think I'll just jump in and help Ryan like nothing ever happened. I asked my mom why she was calling. Can't his parents afford a lawyer? What about all the aunts and uncles who've been kissing his ass his whole life? She got defensive, saying they tried but that the case was too complicated. Then she hit me with, "Your family. I know we've had our differences, but family helps each other. Ryan needs you." The same woman who told me I wasn't her daughter anymore was now using the family card. When I told Daniel about the call, he was livid. He remembered how much their rejection hurt me. They threw you away, and now they think they can waltz back into your life because it's convenient. Hell no. Remember how much you needed your mom when you were pregnant? He's absolutely right. But I can't stop thinking about the past. About my Aboa making me soup when I was sick, singing lullabies as I fell asleep. But then I remember how easily they cut me off, how their love always came with conditions, and how they chose prejudice over their own blood. I'm not going to help them, but I can't stop thinking about my family, which is strange since I haven't felt this way in years, not even when they first cut me off. It's like that phone call reopened all these old wounds I thought had healed. Anyone else dealt with something like this? Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for the support. Things have gotten more intense since my last post. The same day I posted, my mom called again. I declined and texted her that I couldn't help and she needed to stop bothering me. Big mistake, apparently, because she sent this long text about how it was the first time they'd ever asked for help and how I was refusing to step up. Then she hit me with how I was running away from my responsibility. That part really pissed me off because they've always used family responsibility to manipulate people. So I texted back, my responsibility is to my husband and daughter, not to you, who cut me off because I chose my happiness over your hollow pride. She completely lost it, sending me long messages about how I'd changed and how I wasn't the daughter she raised anymore. You've become one of them, mean and cruel. Your success has gotten to your head. You've forgotten your roots. The irony was overwhelming. She hasn't even tried to meet her granddaughter in 3 years. But now she's talking about roots. The messages kept getting more dramatic. My aunt sobbed about how Ryan had 4 kids to feed. My uncle sent a voice message about how the system was rigged against our people. And my older cousin, who I haven't heard from in over a decade, tried to guilt-trip me into representing Ryan. They really don't get how the legal system works. My dad's been quiet through all this since Ryan's from my mom's side. But I know him. If this were someone from his side, he'd be demanding my help too. My mom left me a voicemail, sobbing about how I was letting everyone down, saying she'd already promised Ryan's family I'd take his case, like she thought she could make that promise for me. After sitting on that voicemail, I called her back and said, I'm not risking my career for Ryan. Consider me out of this drama. She lost it again, calling me names and accusing me of being a stranger. I shot back, you treated me like one for 7 years. Where was all this family loyalty when I needed you? That shut her up for a second before she said, you owe us. After everything we did for you, you owe this family. I actually laughed at that. I paid for my own college. I worked my ass off for that scholarship and paid the rest with my job. She hung up, saying, talking to you is like beating a dead horse. I blocked her number after that, thinking that would be the end of it. But nope. 2 days later, Ryan himself called. I didn't even recognize his voice at first. He put on a fake humble tone. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I need your help. Just hearing his voice brought back all the memories of how the family always favored him while I worked 2 jobs to pay for law school. I cut him off right away. I'm sorry, Ryan, I can't help you. He got angry, but I snapped, the kind who's done being taken advantage of, and hung up. It's been quiet since, and I hope it stays that way. Final update, sorry for the delay. Things got messy after that confrontation with Ryan. One day, I got a knock on my office door. Ryan's wife showed up. She didn't waste any time. Apparently, Ryan's situation is even worse than I thought. The DA's got evidence of more than just embezzlement, fraud, credit card scams, fake accounts. He's looking at years in prison. She told me they're offering him a deal if he cooperates, but he doesn't trust the public defender to negotiate, so he needs me. At that moment, I knew this was bigger than just a messed up business deal. It was organized crime. I told her straight up, I'm not touching this. She got pissed, saying, do you even care what happens to him? I snapped, do you even care what happened to me? That night, Daniel got a call from a law school friend who works at the DA's office. Turns out, Ryan's mom had been telling people I was his lawyer to buy him time. My friend warned us it could seriously hurt my reputation. I lost it, called Ryan's mom, and tore into her. She tried to downplay it, but I told her, you thought you could manipulate me into taking the case? Do you have any idea what this could do to my career? She tried to justify it, but I hung up and threatened legal action. The damage was done though. Word spread quickly, and suddenly, everyone was talking about me representing Ryan. Daniel and I had to put out a formal statement to clear my name. It was humiliating. Then things got really scary. I got a call from an unknown number. A guy claimed to be Ryan's business associate and said Ryan owed him money. He asked if I was handling his case. I told him to screw off and hung up. When I told Daniel, he was furious, making me block every single family contact immediately. We thought about filing a police report, but without more details, it wouldn't have helped. Instead, we increased security and had our legal team get involved. A week later, Ryan got arrested again, violating his bail conditions. He'd been meeting with the same people he was supposed to turn in. My mom tried one more time to pressure me, showing up at Daniel's office, crying, begging him to convince me. Daniel told her flat out I was done with it all. That was the last straw. I cut off all contact. No calls, no messages. A colleague told me Ryan eventually took a deal but tried to play both sides. It backfired, and now he's facing even more time than he would have if he had been honest. Last I heard, he's got a public defender now. My mom hasn't called again, but knowing her, she'll probably show up someday, trying to guilt-trip me once more. At least I know I made the right choice staying away from them and their mess.